Can you really sell using social media? Well, let me put it this way. Does your customer want to buy using social media? Let's unpack that on today's episode of The Buyer's Mind.
Welcome to The Buyer's Mind, where we take a closer look deep inside your customer's decision-making mechanism to reverse engineer the perfect sales presentation. Now, please welcome your host, Jeff Shore.
Well, welcome everyone to The Buyer's Mind, where we investigate what is going on in the minds of prospects that are considering a purchase decision. We just love to get into that topic of crawling around in our buyer's brain and knowing them so well that we can roll out that sale based on what we know about the customer. I'm your host, Jeff Shore. You can read the full bio in the show notes. You can also hop over to jeffshore.com and check out our page of books, anything we can do to help you on your sales journey. And today we're going to look at how your customer begins their shopping experience. And these days, that means probably social media. Our show producer, Paul Murphy. Murphy, you're thinking about buying a new car, a new computer, a new bed, whatever it is. Where do you start?
Yeah, I'd ask friends, what do they like about the cars they're driving, right? If they've got something they think is reliable, it'll probably work for me. We've got the idea of trying to find out how to connect with people. We could do that in conversations. We can do that in an email. We could do that on social. Do you think that you're affected by what you see on social media in regards to the pages you interact with, what people are saying about a different product or service? I mean, does that have an effect on you? It certainly does. I know we've got a little neighborhood thing called Nextdoor where people are posting things online about just the local people they're using, and I know that that's where I go to first if I'm looking for something local. If I'm looking for something bigger than that, yeah, I'm going to just toss it out to my friends and ask them what they think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. I was thinking about when we were planning our last vacation to Europe, and we were setting the itinerary in place where we were going to go, and I had seen a couple of different people mention the city of San Sebastian in the Basque Country of northern Spain, and I can't say that it was looking at their social media post that said, that's it, I'm adding it to the list. But I have to believe that it influenced my decision, that there was a validation from other people who weren't trying to sell me something. They were just connecting and letting me know what was going on out there. And I think it affected my decision to eventually go to San Sebastian. Which, by the way, I want to tell you right now, put it on your bucket list. If you've never been to San Sebastian in northern Spain, it's amazing. But the term social selling is pretty common these days. The question is it realistic? And we're going to talk to an expert today on that subject here in just a little bit. Before we do that, we'll give you our quote of the day. I'm actually going to give you two quotes from the same person. And the person that I'm going to quote here, Jay Baer, is going to be on an episode of The Buyer's Mind coming up very, very soon. So your first quote from Jay Baer is this: activate your fans. Don't just collect them like baseball cards. So if you're a business person, we're all about, how many followers can I get? How many likes can I get? You don't just collect them like baseball cards. Interact with them. Bring them into a conversation. And the second quote from Jay Baer focuses on that a little bit more. He says, focus on how to be social, not on how to do social. And I think that that's a great way to look at it. If we looked at social media literally, if we looked at it and we said social, it means that there's a form of interaction. How can I be social on social media? It's not just jamming your product out there, and that's called advertising, but it's not called social. And we want to look at it and say, how do we expand on this? What is going to appeal to my customer more than anything else? An advertisement or a conversation? We want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you in part by our good friends at Home Street Bank. This is not just our show sponsor. This is my lender of choice. I recently used Home Street Bank. It was with my last home purchase, and I got to tell you, smoothest transaction I've ever had. And I've purchased quite a few homes in my day. They were professional. They were dependable, great rates, great service. And if you're a real estate professional, you just won't find better people to work with in taking care of your clients. And these guys can do it all. Banking, home loans, credit lines, anything you need. Go to homestreetbank.com and you can learn more. That's homestreetbank.com. So before we get to our interview today with the great Phil Gerbyshak, let me give you our sales tip, and that is to think unilateral value. Unilateral, one-sided value. I give you this, I expect absolutely nothing from you in return. This is a great way to be able to use social media to say, this is something that I believe will help you. This is something that I think will improve your life. This is something that will make you smarter or wiser or whatever it is. I'm not asking you to buy it. I'm sending something out there that I think will be helpful. And when you do that, when you start thinking along those lines, sometimes we refer to this as content marketing. I'm giving you real, valuable content that will help in your life. But what are the benefits? You provide value. That's always a good thing. You prove your decency. You're appreciated by your customer. You get into a value sharing habit, a very good habit to be in. You get repaid in pleasantly surprising ways by referrals or repeat business or by letters of commendation of some kind. And then you just feel good about doing it. So I just want to ask you today, what can you put out there on social media that has nothing to do with, here's my product, isn't it great? It'll just, the only purpose is to improve the life of the people that you're interacting with. What does that look like? What can you do today? All right, well, how do I describe Phil Gerbyshak? This is a tough one. He's a tech wizard, but he actually has social skills. No, really. He speaks IT, but he also speaks sales. He's written 5 books. He's a prolific writer, a keynote speaker. You can learn about him at philgerbyshak.com. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. We're going to put that link in the show note. And one little side note on this, something that Phil and I have in common, a passion for, of all things, pinball. We'll get to that in just a moment. Please welcome Phil Gerbyshak. Phil, how you doing?
Hey, Jeff, I'm great, man. I didn't know you loved pinball, too. That's awesome.
You know, my first job was at a miniature golf course and arcade when I was 14 years old. I lied about my age in order to get the job. And it was great. We used to go in, me and a buddy, and I'd get a number of tokens, right, that I could use and as part of working there. And we were so good. We would rack up free games, and then we'd sell them to kids, right? You know, whatever, 8 games for $1, and then we'd go over to McDonald's and have lunch. That was an entire summer one year. It was great.
Awesome. That's so cool. Do you have a favorite game that you remember?
They're old school. They're Aladdin and their Mission, what was it called? Mission something or other. It was a space deal, but or Grab It. There's nothing anybody would remember because this is, I mean, you already remember it. I was 14. This is the 1970s. So this is a long time ago.
Very cool. Very cool.
What about you? I'm sure our audience is dying to know your pinball history.
Yeah. So, well, my brother has a bunch of pinball games actually at his place in Seattle, and he's got Pinup, which is one of the first classic pinball games where back it used to be illegal to give free games. So you just get multi-ball or, you know, a free ball, not even multi-ball. Yeah. So that's fun. But really, if I had to pick one game that I was going to play for the rest of my life, it likely would be F-14 Tomcat.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Hey, how do you describe what you do to somebody you meet at a cocktail party? Because this can't be easy.
Yeah, well, it can definitely be hard, and it really depends on who I'm talking to because, you know, making technology approachable can be very difficult. And I think, you know, my goal is to be a bit of a chameleon, and whatever it is about tech that you need to connect to the humans that you serve, that's where I can lend credence and I can help you explain that and connect faster and connect really to virtually anybody if you have a passion about something. If you're just a boring flat person, it's going to be much more difficult.
Now, let's get into the evolution here because I can remember being in frontline sales and one day somebody showed up with a computer in my office. It was a Commodore Amiga, and the F10 key had a little green sticker on it that said "Go." We called it the idiot button, and that was what had sort of advanced everything forward. And I have to tell you, I was scared to death. I was like, "Get this thing out of here!" And in no time at all, I didn't know what I was going to do without it. And yet, you know, we find that you've got people in the sales world that are all over the digital spectrum, and some have embraced it wholeheartedly. Some are still seem to be dragged kicking and screaming into this. So what is your role in bridging the gap between technology and sales?
Well, I think my role is really one of a linguist. I help understand what you're doing. So if you're in sales, right, I help understand that you're trying to get leads, that you're trying to connect to your ideal customers, your ideal prospects, you're trying to get referrals, and ultimately you're trying to get more qualified phone calls. So technology makes that so much easier to do once you define those roles and once you define who you serve. So once you get that, I can help you navigate through that, whether it's using LinkedIn or using a great tool like OneMob to deliver video follow-up messages after you have a conversation or after you send someone an email. It's really just a great way just to get more deeply connected and to make that super simple. So you integrate that into your day, not technology for technology's sake, but as an integral part of your day, of the things that you're already doing, already prospecting, you're already following up on leads, you're already doing research, you're already trying to close deals and get people to talk to you. Well, I can help make technology so much more approachable.
Clarify how that makes you a linguist, as you just described it.
Well, so customers talk one language and salespeople often talk another. So I help make that make sense. And often, let's go even further inside the organization. Often a salesperson talks a different language than the technology. You just mentioned you've got a go button on your old Amiga. Well, okay. How do you find that go button on your phone when you've got 3,000 apps and all these things beeping and burring at you? And you're like, oh my gosh, this thing could just shut up. So how do you make that valuable? And I can help translate between tech into productivity.
What gets you really excited these days as you're looking out there? Because you live in the tech world, you see what's happening, you see what's coming down the road, and for every 100 cool ideas that show up somewhere at at a trade show, one is we eventually actually hear about it. So what's getting you excited these days?
So I really like the potential of OneMob, ONEMOB, OneMob.com. Now, full disclosure, I'm an advisor on the team. But I love this tool. Here's why I love it and why it's so important. So you can take a quick video of yourself in front of a green screen. So if you're in sales, invest in a green screen, invest in a decent mic, invest in your phone and a tripod, and set that up. And with OneMob, you can put a video behind the video of you. So you can do just about anything, or you can, go take a picture of your customers, your prospects, building, and you can get yourself right in front of it. And then when you send that, not only is it great video, but you have the ability to follow up with that because you can see, oh, I shared a link to my LinkedIn. I shared a link to, maybe it's the website. Maybe I shared a link to an article that adds value, and I can track that back so I can see exactly what the person I sent that to did. And you don't have to know any technology in order to do that. It really does have that idiot button, that go button that makes it really easy.
So this is really interesting to me because one of the things that I'm seeing is that, look, for me to proclaim that the future is video, which would make me very archaic in such a proclamation. We know the future is video. The present is video. Of course, the future is going to be video. And yet so many people are slow to join the video bus. And they think it's cutting edge now because they figured out how to, record themselves with a selfie video on their iPhone and send it to a client. But it sounds like what this is something that says, hey, listen, video is there. You've got great sites like BombBomb if you want to send a video email. But if you want to enhance that, now how do you stand out from everybody else who's just figuring out how to send a video email off of their iPhone? Does that sound about right?
Absolutely. Yep. This is the next generation, the next iteration of video. Sure, sending a selfie video is okay, right? And great, you did that. But I want you to think about the goal is action. The goal is real activity. The goal is not just, yay, my prospect opened the video, big deal. It's really engagement, interaction, and then converting them further down so that they say, wow, I can now see why you stand out instead of, blah, you sent me a video email. I'm not even going to watch it.
Let me throw a term out there, and I'd like to get your definition because it's been defined and ill-defined so many different ways. Define, please, social selling.
I knew you were going to ask that, Jeff, because it is so poor. So I would say, first take the selling out, okay, and instead think of it as social connecting. And social moving people to the next step and earning a conversation. It's not selling. Your goal is to get a phone call or to get an in-person meeting with what you do on social. So I would define social selling as sharing information that's valuable to your ideal customer and prospect, educating them so they can be closer to making a buying decision, and being available so that if they have questions, they can reach out to you, and you're so approachable that you become a trusted advisor, not just a salesperson offering your sales, your things that you're selling, but really adding value to that customer, even if it isn't always in your best interest, and even if it will not earn you a commission.
This is so important because it flies in the face of what we see over and over again from sales professionals who, I understand, sales professionals are problem solvers, but they want to jump into finding that solution and making everything better so quickly. And we preach all the time that in that early part of the actual face-to-face conversation, and this doesn't sound dissimilar to what you're talking about, that in that early part of that face-to-face conversation, there's no solving, there's no selling. There's I'm here, I want to understand you, we'll get to everything else. So it sounds like what you're suggesting here in social selling is no different than what ought to take place face-to-face, and they're the part of the conversation. Just get to know them and be available for them.
Absolutely. That's the first step, because if you always have a solution, they're going to think that you always have an ulterior motive. Instead, if you listen and you pay attention and you reflect back and you make sure that you really understand, and then take some time to do that research and to come back with an intelligent next step, it's going to be much better than if you follow the script of here's 8 questions you need to uncover at this discovery meeting. So yeah, absolutely. Listen, learn, pay attention, go do your homework, and then come back with some suggestions.
All right, so that's social selling. Let's talk about social buying, if you will. I'm not sure that's an official phrase, but if we look at it from the customer's perspective, what role do you believe that social media has in the buying decision?
Well, it's a great educational tool. You know, there's so much information out there. You can find virtually anything you want. So that's the first thing. But frankly, that's actually probably the easiest thing. And nobody ever says, wow, give me more information now because I don't already have a million pieces. No. We need to use, as a buyer, we need to think about, okay, can I trust the person that's sharing this? Do they just share things that share their point of view, or do sometimes they share things that are alternative points of view that they can then say, well, I considered that. That's interesting. And do they keep their promises? Do they actually respond to people that comment on their posts? Now, knowing that less than 1% of people actually leave a comment or make a like or do a share or do anything active on social, when you get those comments, when you get those likes and those shares, you need to be engaging, right? Nobody's doing that. So as a buyer, I can test someone out and I can ask a question and I can see, does that person just jump to a solution, or are they actually interested in learning more about me? So as a buyer, again, you can see that. So information, you can see trustworthiness. And then the third thing is you get some social proof as a buyer. You can see who is recommended well and who is not. I mean, if you think about it, it is the Yelpification of sales, how social media has done it. It makes every salesperson available to get critiqued on what they did. And if all their recommendations are just, wow, Phil is a quota-crushing sales master, is that really in the best interest of your customer? Instead, flip that over and say, Phil helped guide me to a solution I didn't necessarily expect. The 15 minutes that Phil spent with me were so valuable. They helped me so much that I couldn't imagine my business without working with Phil. That's the sort of stuff you're looking for. And that's where, as a buyer, you can even leave that feedback on the salespeople you worked with. So it's a clue to other people who are buying, hey, this is someone you want to work with.
Love it. Love it. What you talk to a lot of sales organizations, you do a lot of consulting, strategy, speaking. What are some of the things that salespeople often miss when it comes to understanding technology? Because I have to believe that you probably have found yourself in situations where what to you is common sense is not just gibberish, but you're the enemy as you're coming in on the technology side. What are some of some things that salespeople miss or misunderstand about technology?
Well, the first thing they misunderstand is they don't realize they can change the way that your whole technology behaves. So think about notifications, Jeff. By default, most applications notify you. They're just annoying little pings. So you end up with 7,000 notifications for an email, for a Facebook message, for a LinkedIn message, for that website that you went to once that you accidentally clicked allow notify every time they make a stinking update. Well, salespeople miss that they have the control. Turn off all notifications and then turn them back on based on which ones you really want so that the notifications you get are useful. Otherwise, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming. I would get thousands of notifications every day, and there's no way I could keep up. There's no way anybody could keep up. So turn off notifications. That's a simple one that folks miss. The second thing is templating yet customizing each message that you send. So if salespeople really thought about it, I'd bet they would realize that they get 8 to 12 of the standard questions that do need extra research, but have some semblance of a template, some semblance of an outline. And so then script those out, save those for later, and then really think about the other person on the other end as a human and write to them and use a tool like Text Expander. Text Expander is great. You type a couple keystrokes and it fills in a paragraph or 3 of text that you then have the bones of a great message back to people. So that's the second thing that I would say salespeople often miss. And the third thing is around the video thing. And that is they think that any video is better than no video. And I would say if your video sucks, then don't use it, right? Really think about what's the message I'm trying to convey and know that shorter is better. Even though video is here, it's the today. And even though video, yes, it is somewhat the future. If you're screaming at someone on video, they're not even going to turn on the sound. So you need to think about how short can I make this video and still be meaningful? And maybe even investing in some captioning so that if they're watching it on their phone, they don't even have to turn the sound on, or they don't even have to click it. They can just read the video and get the same information. So those would be 3 simple ones that I see are often missed.
Was it difficult for you to make the jump to video back in the day, or was that just something that, hey, you saw it coming, you said, this looks like fun? What was your approach to video when you first had the opportunity?
Well, I certainly thought it looked like fun, but I also realized that it isn't that easy. I mean, it wasn't that easy. It is now. It wasn't then. I mean, even getting a tripods used to be $50, $60, $100. It didn't used to be on my smartphone. I remember buying a flip camera years ago and thinking, boy, if I could just stop my hands from shaking and being so stinking nervous, this might be a useful tool. Or if someone would just stand like 4 inches from me, this would be great. That wasn't true. I mean, I can tell you video was very intimidating for me. I didn't do video for a long time. I still, to this day, Jeff, I don't really like rewatching myself on video. Doesn't mean I don't do it, but I don't like to do it. But now, I frankly just realize it's a necessity. If you're not doing video, somebody else is with a worse product and a worse message than I have. And I'm getting beat by them because they're doing video. So I need to do video. And I just kind of swallowed hard and I went for it. I've got a smartphone that records. I use Zoom all the time. I invested in a nice Logitech camera and a nice audio technical microphone. So yeah, I spent about $200, but I use it almost every day now. And it's an irreplaceable part of my sales repertoire.
Do you think that the average sales professional who's not using video might be neglecting that simply based on fear? And part of it is just the fear of the technology, although you and I both know this is really, really easy to figure out if you really wanted to. But for the fear of how I'm going to look and for the fear of whether it's going to look professional, whether I'm going to look sharp. And then the follow-up to that, do you believe that customers give you a certain amount of grace if it's not produced professionally and in fact might even appreciate the fact that you did something that's raw and very real?
Absolutely. I think the latter is absolutely true. They definitely give you grace. They give you more grace for effort than they do for anything. The sound quality's got to be good. And you need to think about, how does this add value to the person watching it? It does not have to be professionally produced. Okay. There certainly comes a time for that. But if it's just a quick follow-up, hey, Jeff, it was great talking to you today. I hope you have an awesome day. Hey, by the way, we talked about these 3 things, and I found the links on our website. And here's the link to 3 articles. That's going to get watched again and again. That's going to get clicked on again and again. Mm-hmm. If I decide I'm going to go on for 10 minutes talking about nothing, yeah, for sure, that's not going to help. But think about it like you would a conversation with your ideal customer. Your goal is to educate them as fast as you can in a way that's as relevant to them as possible. And so if they're watching video, if they enjoy video, well, use it then. Mm-hmm. Take care of it, and know that you don't have to be Captain Professional, but you do need to smile at the camera. You do need to not stammer, and you need to practice your messaging much like you would before you go talk to a customer. So just use those same tools and then just hold the camera up. It isn't any different.
You are a LinkedIn wizard, and we're going to put your connection to LinkedIn in the show notes here. But just give us the top level. What are the basic things that salespeople need to do in order to leverage LinkedIn?
Yeah, so it starts with a great profile. You have to have a profile that adds value to the person that's going to read it, and not just read like a resume. A resume is great for getting a job. A value-added LinkedIn profile is a great way to earn a customer. So start with that. Second, think about your ideal customer. What is their avatar? What do they look like? What are their characteristics? So as you're searching on LinkedIn, you're actually finding people that you can do business with that are valuable to you. And then next, I would say you need to stay in touch. You need to connect and stay in touch in a personal way, not personalized, not just adding a one word and doing a mail merge so that everybody gets the same exact message, but in a human way, in a personal way. So you need to be personal. And then last but not least, it's about feeding your network and following up with them. You need to share great content, not just stuff that you created, not just stuff that your company created, but great content that you've found, and add your relevant spin to that. Why does this matter to the people I am trying to attract? Which is all kind of about step 2 there, understanding your customer avatar, their pains. And then I would just close that with one last thing, and that is, it's never accidental anymore, where you get business off of social, where you do things on social. There are no more accidents in social. You need to be intentional, and you need to do this each and every day, as often as you can. If your phone was ringing and you knew it was customers on the other end, you would absolutely pick up the phone. On LinkedIn, if your customers are talking to you, spend the time there, get engaged. And if they're not, then you need to be doing the outreach so that they are talking to you.
Love it. No accidents on social. That's awesome. And you practice what you preach. If we go to Phil's LinkedIn page, and please connect with him, but you're going to see immediately 28 different articles that he has listed right there on LinkedIn. Let me ask you, Phil, this is completely off the subject. You're an interesting cat. And one of the things that you look at is this whole idea that you want to do you really well, right? You want to be Phil Gerbyshak, and in that interesting, quirky type of individual. And yet you also know that there's a public persona that you kind of got to protect to some extent, because you don't want to be a turnoff. So how do you find that balance between being the authentic you and not turning people off? Or do you just simply not care if you turn people off, because if they're going to be turned off, hey, this is just who I am?
Well, I mostly don't care. I mostly am just who I am. But that's taken a long time to develop. And I think around that takes a lot of practice. I remember a long time ago, my buddy Steve Farber, he saw me speak, gosh, it's got to be 11 or 12 years ago. And Farber gave me some feedback after. He said, dude, 3 words for you on how you can be better. And I said, okay, Steve, I'm taking notes. He said, be more you. I said, what does that mean? He said, well, when you're being you, man, your true you shines out. It's clear that you're comfortable. It's clear that you're engaged. So be more you. Don't worry so much about what people think. Now, that being said, I don't cuss a lot. I certainly, I wear orange glasses. I wear bright colors. That is who I am. but I also can't be a jerk, right? You can be opinionated and you can be who you are, but you don't have to be a jerk about it. And what do I mean? I mean, you don't put people down. You don't criticize people. The goal is to build them up. I can tell you if I make 5 comments a day, I probably erase 50 of them because I realize they're not helpful. I always think about, how does this actually help the person that I'm trying to communicate with? And if the world is watching this, does this help the rest of the world? It's not because I'm being fake. It's because I'm being smart and being a little bit more, I don't want to say reserved or guarded, but certainly being a little bit more mindful of the impact on other people has really helped me because, Jeff, I'll tell you, man, I didn't always care at all. And I came across as kind of a jerk. And I can tell you, you definitely get more people with honey than you ever will with vinegar. You'll always attract better people. You'll do better business with good stuff than negative stuff. So yeah, I just kind of let it hang out. The other thing is people have to get to know me in order to make that fit, because it's not like I'm a Pollyanna. It's not like I'm always saying, oh, the world is great. It's just that I look for the great in the world, and I look for ways to be positive, to be helpful, and to be instructive to folks, to add value to them in every interaction. Because if I'm not, and that's the one interaction that a potential prospect or a referral source or somebody comes in contact with me, if that's what they see, they're going to be like, what a jerk. Mm-hmm. So every interaction is important to me. And yet I can't think too much about it, really. All in all, I would say, I don't hold back, but I am mindful.
Phil, almost out of time. Tell me, a big part of what you have to do is stay abreast of what's going on in the business world on a macro level, technology more granularly, of course, but just who's saying what are the thinkers out there? Who do you study? What do you read? What do you listen to?
Oh boy, that's a great question. So I read a lot, and I like to read books. I like to go deep. I'm a big fan of Anthony Iannarino, big fan of Mike Weinberg, big fan of Deb Calvert. Can't wait for her new book to come out. Really excited about that. So as far as reading goes, between their blog and their books, they're fantastic. Big fan of Bob Berg as well. Jeff, I'm certainly a fan of yours. I enjoy your podcast. I enjoy others, many podcasts out there. Again, Iannarino's is fantastic. Big fan also of kind of broadening out that information that I learn. So I also enjoy Doug Sandler and Strickland Bonner on the Nice Guys on Business. Great show that's varied on that. And when it comes to kind of short reading, I use my Feedly and I just whip through articles. I've got Google Alerts set up for like LinkedIn. I've got Google Alerts set up for social selling, Google Alerts set up for leadership and some other topics that help me keep abreast of what's going on. And I just read through it. I don't care where it comes from. Everybody's got a different take. Everybody's got a different way of connecting. I can learn from that. And then the last thing that I would share is that it is about telling story and communicating. So I listen to the Business of Story. Park Howell's podcast is fantastic. He's got some great stuff that's going on there. So I learn a lot from that as well.
Yeah, love it. Donald Miller's Story Brand podcast, also really good stories. Fantastic. Yeah.
I have his new book actually right next to me, Building a Story Brand.
Oh, yeah.
Just got it in the mail Friday. Really, really excited to read that. I actually read, someone said, hey, this book, after I read it, I changed my entire website and the way that I approach customers.
Love it.
Because of that book. So yeah, definitely pick up that.
Yeah, very powerful. Very powerful. Great stuff. Phil, I can't thank you enough. This is really, really helpful. And I want to encourage everybody, just go to LinkedIn and type in Phil Gerbyshak, GERBYSHAK. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. Phil, that was really fun. I can't thank you enough. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you, Jeff.
What an interesting guy. Don't you get the sense, Murph, that Phil's the type of guy you just wouldn't mind sitting down over dinner with?
You like people who are themselves, and Phil is Phil. And so that just shines through. You love that. And so, yeah, it makes you want to sit down and have a cup of coffee or at least spend some time.
Yeah. Look, he's quirky. He's okay with that. And I tend to look at it and I go, how come I'm so so reserved about letting my quirky side show, right? I don't know about you, but I always feel like, oh, no, I got to protect your image and all of that. He looks at it, he says, well, that is my image. What's the big deal?
Well, and when you're a tech person, you tend to feel a little bit nerdier than usual, and that's kind of my case. And sometimes I let that nerd flag fly, and it's a little embarrassing. But I appreciate that about Phil.
A couple of great takeaways from Phil's conversation. One is the idea that when you're looking at social selling and what it is, again, it's not about selling. He says take the word selling out of it. It's about social connecting. It's about social moving people to that next step. And I think that's a great way to be able to look at it. Too many salespeople look at social media as the opportunity to blare their message and basically scream at people for attention. And that's not what people are looking for. So if we can back that up, it'll make a big difference in being able to just connect with people and to be able to begin that conversation. I also love the idea of how you leverage LinkedIn and starting with a great profile. And Phil is absolutely right. And Murph, I know you've seen this, right? Don't most LinkedIn profiles read like a resume?
Well, after doing this podcast, I'm going to have to go in and look at my LinkedIn profile because it does read like a resume. And it's not what it should be.
Right. But I love his comment that there are no accidents on social. That if you connected with somebody on LinkedIn and it led to something, or on Facebook or Twitter, whatever it is, there are no accidents. This body of evidence that we're building, that we are decent people and we can help and we've got a product that's worth looking at, there are no accidents by the time that converts into an actual conversation. And it's not just about standing out. It's about standing out for a reason, because we can help. And if there's one major takeaway that I want to just encourage everybody out there, whether you're, you've got some technophobia, you've got a fear of all things technical, or whether you're already advanced technically, what is the next step? What does that evolution look like? So if you're already very comfortable with video technology, for example, you look at something like OneMob, you look at those platforms out there, but whatever you're doing right now, don't feel like you have to transform everything. Just take the next step. Because the technology is increasingly getting more interesting, more useful, and most importantly, it's getting easier to deal with. And ultimately, when we can do this, when we can own this, when we can put this together, the beneficiary of that is our customer. Our customer gets cool stuff, they get clean stuff, they get easy stuff, they get helpful stuff. And by the time we're done, it just is another way that we can come to their side, another way that we can help our customers be more productive and effective. So I just want to ask you, get out there a little bit. Wherever you are right now, just take it upon yourself to dig deep. But I think Phil Gerbyshak is exactly the type of person that can help you to do that. So follow him. See what he is looking at. See what he is following. And it's probably worth you taking a look at yourself. Well, I just love the energy of Phil Gerbyshak. He's great. And I want to go back and look at one thing Phil brought to the table today, the question of authenticity. And I just loved it. I love that fresh take. I love that idea that Phil is Phil. Phil is himself. That's the only person he knows how to be. But he's also not afraid to be that person. He's quirky. He's edgy. But not because it's part of the well-crafted persona. It's because Phil himself is quirky and edgy. And so he puts himself out there in that way. And the question that I would ask for you is, what are you doing to make sure that you are your authentic self? This is why when I look at sales training and the world of sales training, one of the things that drives me nuts is when I'm seeing a trainer who is asking me to do something that's simply not consistent with who I am. Asking me to do something that's tricky or manipulative or slick in some way. When I'm not tricky, I'm not manipulative, I'm not slick. So I want you to look at it and ask yourself the question, well, what are you? What is your personality? What is your persona? And how do we see more of that? I think authenticity is a beautiful thing, and I think your customer gravitates towards that. You don't have to be the flashy guy unless you happen to be the flashy guy. Be you. Everybody else is taken. Well, thank you once again for listening to another episode of The Buyer's Mind. We want to encourage you to hop over to jeffshore.com and check out the events page, especially if you're a real estate professional. You give us a couple of days and we can transform your career, as we have for so many people. In the meantime, just hop over to jeffshore.com. You can find everything you need to help you on your journey. And until next time, go out there, my friends, and change someone's world.